Good morning and welcome. This is Sunrise Daily. I'm Ayo Makinde. Of course, you know all the things that are happening all over the place, and you would assume, wait a minute, why are you standing? It's because sometimes when you need to introduce some people, you need to introduce some issues, you need to do it with distinguished... okay, let me not get myself into trouble this morning. I'm not alone on this program today again. I just happen to have a colleague with me who I'm going to allow to introduce herself. Good morning.
Good morning, Ayo. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo. Good morning, viewers. It's nice to be here. Wonderful to be here. And thank you for the ceremony. It makes me feel honored.
The only thing that is missing for now is that you don't have no cakes, nothing else. We can always do that behind the camera. I can trust my producer to ensure that.
There's absolutely no need for cakes.
Are you sure?
Get down to business.
Is that to say that you are afraid of having cake on a Monday morning?
No, not at all.
Okay.
It's a Monday morning and there are serious issues, to be discussed, serious issues agitating the minds of Nigerians.
Yes, I know you have always been a news person. And one of the things that really agitates the mind especially in Abuja, at least for now, is this fuel scarcity of sorts. Fuel queues are returning to Abuja, and a good number of people are concerned. Now, the question you want to ask is, why? Let's give you this background in this report.
This NNPC filling station located at the Sokoro used to operate from morning to 10 p.m. But today it's not in operation, and the management is not at hand to give explanation on why this is so. It's the same situation at this filling station located at the Gariki area of Abuja, where operators of the filling station are spotted just sitting and not selling products. Some motorists explore the option of buying from roadside fuel hawkers, but at a high cost.
I woke up this morning, they say scarcity starts again. In the whole central area, is only one filling station that is selling fuel, which is Owando. So if you go to that side now, you see there are a lot of queue.
It's, however, a different scenario at this filling station in the central area, where fuel is being sold, but with a long queue in place. Here at the Central Business District, opposite the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation NNPC headquarters, there's a long queue of vehicles with motorists having spent as long as 1 hour waiting to be served. This fuel scarcity comes barely a month after the last one that lasted for more than a month. Motorists say they're not finding it easy.
I came here before 5:30 and it's now 6:35. So I've spent an hour here, an hour plus.
The product is sold at 165 naira per litre, and motorists patiently take turns to be served. Meanwhile, fuel hawkers are seen around the filling station making brisk businesses. Some of the motorists express worry over the impact of the current development on the socio-economic activities in the nation's capital.
The children are going to school tomorrow. We want to beg government, if we don't want to pass through what we passed through for the last time, so that you just try and let the fuel be available so that we can buy, all of us can be buying fuel freely in a filling station.
As motorists grapple with the current realities, it's not clear if this is another case of artificial scarcity or if it's a real scarcity of fuel. But residents in the nation's capital are hoping that the authorities concerned will find an immediate solution to the problem and save them another excruciating experience of having to wait on a long queue all day for fuel and for transportation. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
Well, of course, the NNPC has since responded, and the agency is concerned directly, saying it's likely due to low loadouts occasioned by, and that's something that usually happens during long holidays. So we were on holiday on Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, and that is why this is happening. Usually the fear is, okay, so it started in Abuja. Where next?
How long before it gets to Lagos? You know, it's really sad. And the report goes further, you know, on other platforms to say that Abuja residents have been experiencing scarcity on and off in the last 1 year. So there really should be a better approach to information management, to helping residents, citizens to understand what exactly, you know, are the reasons, you know, fueling the fuel scarcity, so to speak. You know, because just a few weeks back, when Nigerians experienced untold hardship as a result of scarcity that government explained to be because of importation of fuel that had methanol, the fuel scarcity went on for a very long time, even after government had said that it had, you know, gotten importation of fuel to last for a very long time. And many Nigerians didn't understand why. You know, so there should be more information, more transparency in the process to helping Nigerians understand why they are going through hardship. But, you know, Nigerians are beginning to get worried beyond Abuja now to ask your question, where next?
And by the way, the bad fuel story, we don't know how far so far. We don't know. There is no closure to that.
No
you know,
closure.
It would seem.
Yeah.
So, is this what exactly are the issues? I mean, you're quite right to be asking for that. And guess what? There are a few people who are still saying this should be one of those conversations we should have to ask people who want to employ, because elect sometimes sounds very distant, employ into offices.
It's a job.
Yes.
It's a job.
I say that all the time. It's a job. So you are getting a job. You are being interviewed by people right now to get into the House of Assembly, into the Senate, to the National Assembly, and all of that. So what are the things? And into the executive. And there are those who will be appointed by the people that we elect, that we employ, like the governors and the president and all. Those who will employ, they will appoint people who will assist them in getting the jobs done to ensure that such things don't happen. Because listen to one of the respondents there. We woke up this morning to find out there is fuel scarcity. So in other words, we don't even know what's going to happen next. And that's the scary part.
And one of the questions we should begin to ask those who are going to employ is how they would tackle, you know, the fuel situation to make it, to bring about enduring solutions. For instance, Nigeria has spent $400 million now on the refineries, and the NNPC has come out to say the refineries had to be shut because really there was no point. They couldn't transport crude oil to the refineries, you know, sufficient crude oil to get it up and running. Yes, they say it's a question of age. The refineries are aged, but really the pipelines too cannot transfer crude oil to the refineries because those pipelines have to be protected, and a lot of the pipelines have not been serviced. So these are the issues. A private sector participant is coming in on the scene very soon. How do you ensure the safety of his own infrastructure, you know, to transport crude oil to his own facility? So these are some of the issues we should begin to ask.
And we should also ask the people who are working in those refineries that are not operational, are they still getting paid? If they are getting paid.
How was the $400 million expended?
No.
I think we've been asking that question for too long now.
There are too many questions to ask, honestly. But, you know, those are some of the issues. And, well, the question we're asking is, where next? We hope and pray that this is the last the last of it that we will have to deal with, because right now that is the current situation that Nigerians find themselves waking up to realities that they didn't plan for. Children are returning to school today, and all kinds of things that one is wondering how it is being addressed. But hey, that's just one of the issues that may make the papers that we're going into right now. Our first pick this morning is Nigerian News Direct, because it is also talking about something fuel related. And that's what you have on its front page. Aviation crisis, operators withdraw action on proposed shutdown. It was a scary weekend for many people who were traveling. A friend of mine was in Lagos at the Lagos airport yesterday, going out of town, not out of country, but out of town. And while we were talking, I was informed that the airport was like a marketplace. You know, so many people wanting to maybe beat deadlines or whatever, but that's what you have here now. So operators have withdrawn their action, cite interest of national economy, security as reasons for reversal. And the experts are saying increase in flight fares key to domestic airlines problems. Find the details of that on page 2. And something closely related, NCC rallies media stakeholders to enhance effective reporting of telecoms industry. Okay, that's also right there on the front page of the paper. Right above the nameplate, fuel scarcity, long queues resurface in Abuja. That's the Nigerian News Direct this morning.
Yes, indeed, and it's interesting, and it's such a relief to know that you found your friend, gave a testimony of the airports being a marketplace, because what would have happened, those who have made, air travel an alternative to road transport, what would they have done? Some, work in one state and their families are in another state, but how long before the intervention or before airlines have to make that difficult choice?
Let's just hope that intervention has started.
Let's hope so. So we go right to another paper, which is the Daily Trust. Buhari warns military as bandits kill scores in Zamfara. And at the top corner, before we go to the top corner of the Daily Trust, the riders on that main story say how gangs on dozens of motorcycles attacked villages, 43 victims buried, attackers raised hospital, Zamfara government, police, mum on the issue. That's a rather sad one, very unsettling. Now, to the top corner of Daily Trust, Ganduje, that's the governor of Kano State, endorses deputy governor, picks senatorial ticket. After intense pressure, airlines rescind planned shutdown. And if you go to the bottom corner of Daily Trust, fuel queues resurface as retail stations shut in Abuja, Kano, Lagos. Wow, Ayo. Our question is getting answered already.
No, you mean our fears have been... I don't want to say confirmed. I'm actually scared to say confirmed. So let's just stick with the videos we have seen. I hope... Well, you can also give us an idea. Are you having fuel queues in your area as well, outside of Abuja? If this is happening on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper, definitely some background to it.
That will help us understand how far-reaching this is getting. You have the next paper?
Oh, yes, I do. The Leadership newspaper has this one on its front page. Ahead of party primaries, CSOs kick against aspirants' use of state resources for campaign. About time, would you say? Stories on page 4. Northern groups decry hijack of political space by same actors. We don't want government of continuity, says ACF. Beware of aspirants with empty promises, Afenifere tells Nigerians. Amechi, Saraki, Peter Obi intensify campaign for party tickets. All of that you find on the front page. You find the story itself on page 4 of the paper this morning. And right beside that lead story, ASU ends warning strike to decide next line of action. What I saw was a little scary, and I just hope it's not going into. So it's now the word warning is being replaced by indefinite. I hope not. But I guess if you find the details of that story on page 6 of the paper. To one of the issues of concern, aviation fuel, 1 hour flight may hit 120,000 naira. Anyway, that's the leadership newspaper today.
For you this morning. And from leadership, we move to the Abuja Inquirer. And the big story on the Abuja Inquirer goes thus. Abuja demolition turns bloody. Hoodlums injure police officer, hold others hostage. FCTA reviews enforcement strategies. That's the big story, really worrisome, another housing concern there. But you'll find details from the Abuja Inquirer. If you go to the top corner of Abuja Inquirer, you'll find another story, ASU moves indefinite strike 2 months after. I was worried there with the word indefinite, but let's hope that an enduring solution is found to that situation.
Especially because students are at home. You know, I have my fears because I've said this countless times. And I think I also recall something that former President Obasanjo said about out-of-school children. He was talking about out-of-school children.
Now we're talking about out-of-school youth.
So he said that if we don't do something about out-of-school children, we are already raising our problems for the future, because we need to engage the young people, young minds. They can't lie fallow. They always have to be occupied with something. The question you want to ask is, wouldn't you rather be the one to determine what their minds are engaged with in the interest of all that is just and fair?
And where you have certain situations of unrest and insecurity, it's not too far-fetched. You can always relate it to the continuing strike. When the youth do not have positive engagement, they will resort to other forms of activity that are not particularly wholesome.
Absolutely, and it's really scary, but I always want to believe that we can't have so many people working in the ministries, departments, and agencies, and they are not doing something for the country. I find it's impossible in my head to imagine that is possible, but hey, I guess we'll wait and see.
Okay, we're not done with the Abuja Inquirer. There are other interesting stories. Malaria accounts for 70% outpatient visits in FCT hospitals. And right beside that, there's also Film Festival. FCTA seeks tax holidays for creative industry. Emefiele, aviation crisis, reps hold emergency plenary on Monday. So we're going to have news in that regard. 2023 APC PDP fielding northern candidates recipe for crisis. It's politics. It's going to give us a lot of talking points in the coming days.
Talking about talking points, look at the front page of the Guardian newspaper. Sufficient, that's a significant talking point on the front page. Emefiele's 2023 aspirations rattles financial experts, lawyers. That story continues on page 4. Look at the writers. Fashua, injection of CBN chief, additional points to more complex game plan. That's what you have right there on the front page. He has no moral, ethical reason to remain in office, say lawyers. And header petitions ICPC to investigate Emefiele. But of course, we've since heard the comments of the CBN chief about whether or not he's running for office. I still wonder, running, applying for a job.
He says he's undecided, but is appreciative of efforts of those who have rallied to aid his aspiration. But let's leave
he would assume, is it an aspiration or a proposition for him to get into the recruitment agency called a political party, to get into an employment that is superior to
perhaps we should describe it as a yet undetermined aspiration. We'll know in the coming days.
All right, more on that. You find this one also below the page. 100 billion naira equalization fund, 40 infrastructure may trigger fresh petrol scarcity. I don't know. I think this needs some speaking to So, is this the reason for the fuel scarcity we're already seeing now? 100 billion naira equalization debt, 40 infrastructure may trigger fresh petrol scarcity. The story is on page 2, and it should give you more details on the inside pages.
You know, it buttresses my point on more transparent approach to information management.
Absolutely.
Getting the exact reasons out there so that Nigerians can know and understand what they're going through, why they're going through, what they're going through.
Absolutely.
Our next paper up for review is New Telegraph. And the big story on New Telegraph has some political undertones. Tsunami 2023. Tsunami imminent in APC. The riders go this way. Will provide a level playing ground for all aspirants during primary. Adamu, that's the party chairman. Everything going haywire under ruling party. Bauchi governor. PDP, APC, no longer Nigerians' choice. Kwankwaso. Well, that's understandable. Okay, let's go to the top corner of New Telegraph. Q1, that's business now having to do with the economy. Q1, 2022, 11 banks' assets rise by 4.8% to 52.03 trillion naira. Tier 2 lenders make progress. And just beneath that, we have airlines make volte-face call of strike. Let's now go to the bottom part of the New Telegraph. Northwest crisis. Sustained onslaught against terrorists. Buhari charges military. Consoles victims of Zamfara killings. Leaves for Abuja to attend COP15 conference. Outcome of federal government's efforts in battling insecurity underway. So says the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo. There's a study here that may interest a lot of Nigerians, with Nigerians going through so many things, you know. This is a study that should help people with anxiety, depression, risk chronic diseases. So it's better to just try to keep yourself happy.
Don't worry. Can we have the front page of the Vanguard newspaper this morning? And this is one of those vexed issues that people talk about. GDP contribution to economy. Manufacturing sector stagnates. What does that mean? I look at the riders. Average GDP contribution 9% in 3 years. Trails, agri sectors 26% contribution. Nigeria well below industrialization goals, as ascribed to Nasima. FG must tackle binding constraints urgently, it's ascribed to Man. Sector remains largely import dependent, says the CPPE. Find the details of that on page 19 of the Vanguard newspaper this morning. And of course, you see the graphic there telling you a thing or two. It's definitely something worth interrogating. 2023 presidency. Aspirants intensify lobby over zoning as PDP NEC meets tomorrow. Story you'll find on page 5. There's this unfortunate story of maverick politician Senator Arthur Nzeribe dying at age 83. The story is on page 13 of the paper this morning. Several other very interesting stories you'll find on the front page. But you'll find Mr. and Mrs. very interesting this morning. Mr. and Mrs.
I find that that's your favorite.
Oh, well, I'm just,
by the way.
I'm just, I'm just a campaigner. I'm a civil society organization, you know. But I will not be. I'm gonna let you do the reading yourself.
Not to go to Mr. and Mrs.
Yeah. Anyway, so well, Mr. and Mrs. is giving some codes to Mrs. this morning to find out how smart men are. Is it true or not? You'll find it in the Vanguard newspapers, Mr. and Mrs. this morning. Back page, Ghana versus Nigeria. Nigeria hit Ghana 2-0 in under 20 AFCON. Is that supposed to be a relief? I don't know. That's the Vanguard newspaper this morning. And
we have a Nigerian Tribune also, just before we leave the papers. and the Nigerian Tribune is zeroing in on the 2023 presidential race, and it says odds against Additional. What AFDB Code of Conduct says: 23 aspirants pick APC forms as Buhari keeps chieftains guessing. Silver may join race. You find all the details of that big story on page 8 of the Tribune. All right, let's see what some of the aspirants are saying. Now, one of the aspirants from the PDP says, I will fix Nigeria. Saraki says we can't vote just any Nigerian as president. That's the former Senate president speaking. From yet another aspirant, we hear that, quote, I will bolster reward system in APC. That's from Bola Tinubu. Visit Taraba and Adamawa. And yet another, who's the vice president, how we're ramping up security architecture. That's from Oshimbaju, receives CAC delegation. So many other interesting stories on the front page of the Tribune.
And with that, we close out on the papers this morning. But one of those issues that's made the front pages is concerning the aviation sector. Let's take a closer look after this break.
The Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives and some members meet with airline operators and regulatory agencies of the aviation sector. The meeting is to unravel the circumstances surrounding the increase in airfares brought about by scarcity and increase in aviation fuel.
1 year ago, he was selling...
The Director General of the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority and the GMD of the NNPC brief on how dire the situation is.
Considering the cost of air ticket now, the base of 15 naira, the airline industry cannot survive. It's either we shut them down because they cannot generate enough revenue to operate safely, sir. I'm not even talking about cancellations and delays. I'm talking about safety of flight operations.
Today, the landing cost of air ticket today in the country today is 418 naira today. I just checked that with my colleague here. What would it be? The price that we have no control, that's what the international price is. It is 418 naira today.
The airline operators are disturbed by the hike in aviation fuel from 190 to 670 naira per litre.
We wanted to shut that, but when we look back, with the benefit of hindsight, what the legislation did for airlines, what the presidency did for airlines, we decided to sacrifice for this country. On this table, you find two Nigerian patrons because we are subsidizing what at each level one of you are using in flying. But we cannot continue. We cannot last the next 72 hours doing that.
We are now beginning to compromise even in our safety. All of us fly here. All of us fly here. Nobody, if you tell somebody to take cab, go by road to Maiduguri, you will not go. All of us fly here. So why are we trying to compromise our safety? It's a critical issue. Who is bringing this fuel? And what price are they bringing? Somebody has to regulate them.
Attention turns to the Consumer Protection Council, which is accused of not doing its job.
Our intervention was forced to other airlines that they cannot coordinate.
Do you have the communication?
Well, it was online. We put it out.
Have the communication?
I do not have it here, but the airlines do not dispute that they received an order. Every airline here received an order from the FCCPC.
Who would be doing business that will have this market increase and maintain the same price if it's their own business?
No,
let's be honest.
And we understand that, right, Honorable?
And that's why I'm asking you, you as an agent of government, you are supposed to be concerned about the price, you are supposed to monitor, so you are failing your duty.
Respectfully, sir.
It's okay, thank you.
A GMD, whoever is responsible, whether regulatory, supervisory, authority, whatever it is, you know what the law is. And you know the law better than all of us here. In fact, you drop the process.
The lawmakers are concerned about the continued price increase, as well as the reason why marketers are insisting on upfront cash payment. The marketers are to appear before the committee subsequently for further investigation. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
That was at about March 10 when aviation fuel price undulated around 670 naira to the litre. The question you want to ask is, how much is it now? Some are saying something around 700 naira a litre and all. That added to the fact that when you board an aircraft, you're only concerned about comfort and getting to your destination. But the industry is a lot bigger than that. Perhaps there are some considerations that we all need to have in this melee going on between the aviation, airline operators and the government and all of the issues. This morning, Captain Ado Sanusi joins us. He's an aviation expert, and you've been practically in every sector of the aviation sector,
Yeah.
both as an operator, as a manager, and now as a consultant. Is it possible that there are issues around this whole thing that people don't understand?
Yes, first, thank you very much for having me. There's an issue I think we don't understand. We are actually overlooking. We are operating in a deregulated market, both in the oil and gas for the ATK, that is the aviation fuel, and also in the aviation industry. We're deregulated. So it means that AON...
Completely deregulated.
Completely deregulated. So AON can sell their ticket the amount they wish to sell their tickets. The same thing, the Jet A1 importers, they are allowed to import, source their foreign exchange, import and sell the way they feel they should sell. But all this, because we are a nation of laws, there are authorities that are responsible to ensure that the pricing of all these things are done in a standard manner. For the oil and gas, of course, there is the Nigerian midstream and downstream regulatory authority that regulates the importation of Jet A1. But I respectively disagree with the stand of AON. By saying that they're going to shut down. It's a free market economy, and I said part of the things of a free market economy is when there's a price increase, you also review your prices and increase the price accordingly. I don't think you should put the flying public into a kind of despair, saying that you're going to close shop completely. I don't think it's a good idea.
That has happened.
Yeah.
During when the lockdown was ebbing out, we saw people who posted videos of themselves online on aircrafts that were literally empty. 120,000 naira cannot adequately support one aircraft for 1 hour in the air. So don't you think that the concerns of the airline operators, I mean, you've been there, so don't you think those concerns are justified?
No, definitely the concerns are there. And the cost of operation of an airline is increasingly going up. That is no doubt about it. And part of the cost is the Jet A1. Another is the high rise of the exchange rate. But if I hear people touting 120,000 naira, at what exchange rate are they talking about? Are they talking about the CBN exchange rate? But if you now say that for an hour's flight, you are talking about $80 for an hour's flight or $100 for an hour's flight. And then you look at the exchange rate, because this is an international industry with international standards that we follow. So the 120,000 naira that they are touting, I don't know whether they're talking about for an hour's flight. If it's for an hour's flight, is it what is obtainable in other parts of the world? The fact that Jet A1 is going to be probably 700 naira per liter, it's a reflection of what is happening in the world. There is a plat price, what they call plat price, which is the internationally recognized pricing for the ATK. Now, if you bring it to Nigeria, of course, you have to be plat plus something because of transportation and other taxes that will be added. Naturally, because of the shutting down of Russia's oil because of the war, the prices increased, plat increased. And I think AON should wake up and understand that the federal government is not going to subsidize their private businesses. And they should start looking at increasing their prices to reflect the reality.
Wouldn't they lose more cost? Okay, just go ahead.
Sorry, Captain. Yeah. Even if they reviewed their prices, you know, I took time to look at the prices yesterday. And if, correct me if I'm wrong now, if an aircraft spends 4,000 liters of Jet A1 fuel for a 1-hour flight, and, you know, a liter of Jet A1 fuel costs 700 naira. 700 naira times 4,000. If an airline does 6 flights on the average per day, it's spending an average of about 28 million naira in that region per day. Can any airline survive on that? And even if they increase, you know, the price of tickets for consumers, for passengers, it would still not meet. How many passengers are they carrying per aircraft? Max 150.
Well, you see, then you go back to your business model and see whether that airplane that you are using is a good airplane for the circumstances you find yourself in. If the aircraft is consuming 4,000 liters an hour, then you probably look for an airplane that will consume maybe less than that, maybe 2,000 or 3,000 liters per hour. But if we are not mindful of this increase of Jet A1, and we do not address it, we don't expect the federal government to give us subsidy for Jet A1. I don't think it's a good idea. I think there should be an intervention for bringing the cargo in. So let's say NNPC can bring the cargo for the Jet A1 and ensure that the landing prices, as I said in my last interview, the landing prices are quite transparent and they don't, there is no exorbitant profit on it. And I believe it will probably be as low as probably 500 or maybe 550 naira per liter. Then that intervention can go till when we start refining this product. And I believe that Dangote's refinery is coming on board very soon, probably in 8 to 10 months. And I think that will actually give the Jet A1 a stable price, and because we are now refining the product and we don't have to import it.
Speak to this concern. I have been concerned about this one. I've been a little worried about it. The arrangements, the challenges that the local operators, airline operators are having now, foreign airlines don't have it, it would seem. There are those who say there is already an agreement, so like it's a yearly agreement or something where the fuel price for international aircraft are not increased, or it doesn't change at all, whatever the circumstances are. I'm wondering, first of all, you can confirm if that is true, and if it is so, how come such an arrangement can't be made with local airline operators?
It's called fuel hedging. So what the international airlines they do is, because they know their operations are very stable. They know that they consume 1,500,000 liters a month. So the airline will go and say, look, I'm consuming this and I'm going to buy this from you. at so price. And then they will lock up the price and pay for their fuel. So that gives them the liberty to sell tickets, because they know that every ticket they're selling at that region. Now, the international airline are still having the same issues that we're having. The prices increased the same way.
Jet A1?
Jet A1, yes, in Nigeria it increased. I was consulting for another carrier, and they were complaining that Jet A1 is very expensive in Nigeria. In Kano, it's close to $1.47 per liter, and that's quite expensive. Now, why is it expensive? Because we don't refine it. So that means we have to buy it outside and then transport it, bring it to Apapa, and then transport it all the way to Kano and to Maiduguri and the rest of the places. So it's going to be expensive. And until we have the refinery on board and they can pipe the ATK to areas up north, the prices will also be, even after the refinery comes in, the prices will also reflect the transportation cost to those places. And the reason why I'm a bit worried is that the airlines should understand this, because this is very basic in airline management. They should understand this and take care of it right from the get-go. And they should wake up and understand that we're not going to go to government and start asking for bailouts.
Are you saying that the whole threats of the AON has
no basis?
Had no basis in the first place?
Of course. What was the basis on? It's simple. Let me give you an instance. If, for instance, the Airbus industry and Boeing come together and say, well, because of inflation, because of raw materials, we are now going to charge 30% on a 30% more on a brand new airplane. Will the airlines of the world say, no, we will not fly, we will not buy your airplanes again, or we will not fly again, or first we will shut down because you've increased fares? They will not say that. They will reflect that increase in their new ticket price the moment they buy that product. They will reflect it on their ticket prices to ensure that they are profitable.
Speaking of hedge funds that you talked about, as it has to do with international airlines, I want to believe that it has that local airlines too can access some sort of hedge funding to protect them from volatility, buy in bulk, but then they're at the mercy of the uncertainty of forex. So they complain that the international airlines favor, that major marketers favor the international airlines, and not every one of the domestic airlines can get forex cheap. What form of protectionist policy would you recommend that government puts in place? For, at least it has to do with the national economy for the domestic airlines.
So you see, the recurrence decimal there is foreign exchange. Why are the international airlines, why are they the ones that are being favored? They are only favored because they pay in dollars. Because the marketers will get foreign exchange paid in dollars. So that is why the oil companies or the marketers sell to these international operators. So the only thing that we can do is to ask the federal government to make foreign exchange available to airlines, and to ensure that foreign exchange is available at, of course, at the good price. And then fuel hedging will be easy, because then when you pay, the fuel marketers can buy and keep it for you at that price. But the international airlines pay in dollars, so the fuel marketers will go there definitely.
But then is the federal government, offering that intervention in favor of domestic airlines satisfactorily?
No, I don't think so. I don't think they are, especially in the form of foreign exchange. But we also have to understand the country is it's having some crisis economically because of the foreign exchange. There's a lot of demand on the foreign exchange, and aviation is part of it. So we also must think that as an airline, we must think and operate within this situation that we find ourselves in.
Do you see a role for the federal government of Nigeria? You know, I had to pause to say federal government of Nigeria.
Yeah.
Do you see a role for the federal government of Nigeria in mitigating these vagaries? You are a businessman as well. So when you are unable to determine certain things or predict certain things in business, or rather outside of your bands of omission or errors or whatever, once it falls off way above, it becomes a little more tasking for you to navigate around it without doing harm. I'm asking this concerning the responsibility or what role federal government can play in this, because if prices are increased, the likelihood of patronage dropping is high.
Yeah.
And when that happens, the airlines themselves will not be able to operate maximally profitably. Job losses are imminent. Even the aviation staff of government, NCA, FAA, and everyone's job, so to speak, is at risk. And I'm sure we're not just talking about 10 jobs here. So do you see a role for the federal government in mitigating the risks that we've just talked about?
Absolutely. Absolutely, that is the role actually the federal government should play, putting policies that will bring a better environment, operating environment for the airlines. Now, what are the policies they should bring in? Especially the foreign exchange should be made available to the airlines. Then stability of price of Jet A1 should be made. It's very simple to do that, as I said. I've said it several times. There is so many ways you can get the stability of Jet A1 pricing. I mean, we have it in other countries where they're even at war, and the pricing is stable. So it's very simple to do that. And the easiest thing is for federal government to bring the cargo in. And when they bring the cargo in, and this is not going to be forever. It's just going to be for the time when we are going to start refining the product. So when the federal government brings the cargo in, they are allocated to the marketers, not to middlemen, to the marketers, and they are allocated to the marketers, and the marketers put it on the airplanes. And so for the next 10 to 12 months, there will be stability of that. And the moment we start refining the product in Nigeria, there will be stability of the pricing. And the moment there's stability of the pricing, the cost to the airlines is known. It's not arbitrary, or it cannot go up, or it cannot be a runaway pricing, because it's all done. And the form of hedging could be done directly with the refinery, stating that, look, airline A is going to take 2 million liters every month. I need 2 million liters. I can even pay the refinery. Internationally, some airlines even own part of the refineries.
Well, we'll come to that, because that's one of the issues that have also been canvassed by some people. And the fuel is just one of those issues in the dynamics. Let's listen to this comment on March 23rd. That's quite a little while ago, by one of the airline operators.
We want to make bold to say that airlines of Nigeria never got together to increase their base fares. It never happened. We debunk that insinuation that the airlines got together we debunk that insinuation that airlines got together to fix prices. And I want to say something here, whether we believe it or we don't believe it. The 50,000 you have seen on our inventory has always been there. For the last 5 years, 50,000 fare has always been there. During Christmas time, December, the period of December, you notice that fares, the basic fares going to certain areas in the country will be maybe 60, 70,000. Airlines didn't come together to decide to do that. It's a matter of you working out your unit cost per seat of your operations. What is the unit cost per seat of your operation? That will determine your basis. During those periods, you notice that some areas you will fly into full and you'll be coming out with 0 passengers. So airlines will just on their own individually fix their prices to, at least get their costs covered. In the same vein, Jet A1 fuel has risen from 200 naira to a liter to 430 naira to a liter. It's only a very stupid businessman that will not know that there is fire in the mountain. The ground handling companies increased their charges by 300%. And they reported to NCA, they got together to do that. They went to the National Assembly and they said they didn't hide it. And it has been approved for them. The ground handling companies, who is responsible for the payment of their wages? Airlines. So if the cost of my operations all of a sudden has gone 300% on the increase, just from the ground handling services alone, what do I do? If the cost of aviation fuel has risen to over 200% within a month, what should I do? If the cost of forex has risen from 300 naira, 340 naira, all of a sudden to 585 naira, what should I do? Gentlemen, do not forget that airlines, our business is dollarized. Everything is in dollar. Do you want to fall out of the skies? Do you want to fly safe in Nigeria? Foreigners have been asking questions, not even now, since 3 years ago, that how do you people maintain your planes with the kind of fares you charge in Nigeria? In the year 2000, the least fare in Nigeria was 2,200 naira, which was equivalent of $100 then. I was about 1998, equivalent of $100 then. Now, 22 years down the line, Nigerian airlines were flying in this country for less than $30, $40. Do you need to look for reasons why airlines are closing shop in this country? Over 50 airlines have gone down in this country. Has anybody bothered to find out why?
This was on March 23.
Yeah.
This year, just to be clear. And of course, you've heard, we've spoken quite copiously about the fuel price. It was then 200 to 430. Now it's 700, and definitely those concerns you have spoken to are genuine. He also spoke to ground handling companies who did what you don't like. Got together, and they increased their charges by 300%. He said, and they are not hiding it. Certainly, it's not the best of time for aviators now, and the concern remains: how do we ensure that they don't go underground?
Well, I think there must be a concerted effort to ensure that the federal government gives a lot of incentives to keep them afloat. Now, I don't subscribe to bailouts, but I think the airlines are actually struggling, and they've been struggling for a long time. The increase in fuel prices is definitely going to affect their survivability. But I believe that if federal government should act by the importing of this Jet A1, it will help them. and also by making available foreign exchange at CBN rate, at the official rate. It will also help them a lot to survive. It's not in the interest of the economy, it's not in the interest of the security of the country for airlines to keep going down. But I also have to say this to warn that whenever there is any form of bailout, there must be conditions attached to those bailouts. And usually the bailouts I've seen in aviation in this country have resulted to more closure of airlines than surviving of the airlines. The moment you have a bailout from government, then the government will dictate your business. And then that is the beginning of your failure.
Well, before we let you go, Captain, let's talk about something that we're not paying close attention to. I recall it was said by one of the airline operators in the first report we watched, also from way back in March. He was expressing concern about safety, not just, the loss of revenue now for the airlines and all their other concerns about costs. He emphasized on safety. And let's set that against the backdrop of, an air mishap recorded recently, for which the AIB came out to say later on that it was due to fuel exhaustion. Give us a sense of how much danger that portends, from your experience in aviation.
First, as an aviator, I will say that we sell safety. So no airline is going to compromise with safety. Whether the fuel goes to 1,000 naira per liter, no airline would do that. That's what we sell. So if we sell safety, why would we compromise it? So the moment you're not safe as an airline, then you're going to lose your, first you lose your license, and then you lose your business. There are some sharp practices maybe people would think that they will get away with, but aviation is a very unforgiving industry. Safety is very critical. I do not think any airline will compromise safety because of rise in fuel prices, or you could not get foreign exchange. They would rather shut down. Well, if I run an airline, I would rather shut down the airline because I cannot operate it safely, than operate it unsafe.
But what did he mean?
Well, I think it's sentiments that he's trying to bring out so that they can listen and understand their plight. I think that's all that they're trying to do.
Okay.
But we are highly regulated, and the pilots will not compromise. First, they cannot take off with fuel that will not take them to Abuja. Secondly, there is so many checks and balances that if the fuel is contaminated, it cannot be put on the airplane. And even if they're putting it, the pilot also have to see and understand what kind of fuel they're putting on the airplane. So it's quite safe.
Well, one of the concerns that's been around is, just as you also mentioned now, the risk of shutting down, which you have spoken to a few times.
Yeah.
And there is an airline that I'm sure you are very well aware of, Aero Contractors, that's said to be, that may be on the way to shutting down, and that's just one. 61 years after, and that is happening. And part of the reasons given is the cost of maintenance, unavailability of foreign exchange, high fuel price, and low passenger traffic. And this is for the one that we know. And of course, you spoke copiously about this in time past. In giving us a semblance, a sense of what people may not be aware of concerning that airline that is likely going down, how many other airlines are at such risk?
I would say most airlines are struggling. And now most airlines in the country are struggling. And so if you're struggling, what you need to do is try and cut your costs and re-strategize your business and make sure you survive. I believe Aero Contractors will survive. I strongly believe they will survive.
Despite all these challenges.
Yeah, despite these challenges that you mentioned, I believe with good and smart management, they can survive. I believe they can. I mean, 61 years is not a joke. And if aero contractors should go under, that means the oldest airline in the country is no longer there. But I think they have seen worst situation and they have survived, and I think they will survive. Now, all the airlines are all struggling. They are all struggling. Now, the only thing that we should...
Just a second. Okay. Do you think government and all stakeholders in the sector are aware of how seriously aviators are struggling?
That's where I was going, actually. I don't think the federal government and other stakeholders in Nigeria understands the pains the airlines are going through. And if they do, then they are just sweeping it under the carpet, because there's a lot. And as the AON vice chairman said, that the airlines have been going under, but we have not actually looked at the reason why they are going under. And I think that's supposed to be a case study to see why are the airlines not surviving. Why is the average age of an airline in this country 10 to 15 years they are going to go under? Why? So those are the things that we should actually look at and then correct it, so that we don't make the same mistake and think that we're going to get different results. The Nigeria Airways went under, the Cabos, the Okadas went under. I can continue mentioning names of airlines that were to go under. And of course, these sets of airlines that we have now are also struggling. And if care is not taken, then they will go under, and then new ones will come, and then that's what will happen.
Is it because of incompetence in management? Because if you recall that some of these airlines were under receivership, yet they were not able to recover, from their challenges.
There's so many things that are wrong with the airlines. The management, lack of corporate governance, it's major reason of most of the airlines going under. Then there are some external factors too. Foreign exchange, high cost of financing. The interest rates are killing. We don't get those kind of interest rates outside the country. The choice of aircrafts, mentioning that you have an airplane that is supposed to be flying for probably 3 hours, and you're using it to fly 30, 40 minutes. And of course, the cost of maintenance will go high. So many factors are affecting the market in the country. And the reason is because most of the airlines, not all, most of the airlines did not do a strategic business study on the market they're entering into, the suitability of the aircraft, the routes they are going into, and all that. And then a very good corporate governance. I believe with this, you have a recipe for a successful airline.
Lastly, the federal government has released a statement. The aviators themselves have also said, okay, government has stepped in and said, okay, they're going to do something to ameliorate the pains. The aviation minister's aide put out a statement saying that the aviation minister has been at the forefront, taking the aviators to CBN, taking them to the NNPC, to ensure that some of these concerns are addressed. It would seem like those haven't really yielded any fruits. What, in your opinion, has to give from the aviators and from the federal government to forestall anything untoward, either with one airline operator or the industry?
No, I think they have not exhausted all the options that they have. And I believe that...
talking about the government or the aviators?
The aviators. Okay. I believe they should put more pressure, because...
pressure on who?
Pressure on the government, on the federal government, to put more pressure on the federal government and to give them specific points where what they want them to do. Like the point of, we need cargo intervention. When you're going to say we need cargo intervention, you tell the federal government that in the next 10 months, we will need X metric tons of Jet A1 into the country, and it's strictly for domestic carriers. And it will be given to A, B, and C marketers, which we will follow diligently to make sure that it is used for the Nigerian market. And this intervention is only going to be for a period before Dangote's refinery comes on board. And I think if they do that, if they present their case with figures, and this is what we want, these are the people that you will give the fuel to, and this is the amount, and this is how we intend to monitor them, I think the federal government will say, okay, we will do that for you guys.
Sounds to me like you have a job to do.
And sounds to me like you want a balance between asking for intervention and subsidy so that the airlines can maintain their independence.
Yes, okay. Exactly, because you know, the moment you ask for a bailout, then you will definitely have to give up something, because bailout comes with lots of conditions.
Okay. Yeah.
Captain Adosanusi, why do I always call you Baliro? Captain Adosanusi is an aviation expert. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me.
So, that's not the only sector that's been talking. The next one is telecoms, and that comes right after now. The next conversation is concerning a statement put out by the Association of Licensed Telecom Operators of Nigeria, who says that given the state of the economy and 40% or thereabout increase in the cost of doing business, they are also proposing a 40% increase in the services that they render to Nigerians. To be or not to be? Let's have a conversation this morning with Chief Adeolu Ogunbanjo, who is National President, National Association of Telecom Subscribers, NATCOMS. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure having me.
And we also have Mr. Benga Debaya, who is Chairman, Association of Licensed Telecom Operators of Nigeria. He joins us virtually from Ikoyi. Thanks for joining us this morning, Mr. Debaya.
Thank you and good morning.
Good morning. Perhaps a little background. The last time interestingly, it was both of you gentlemen that were here to have this conversation with us. And it sounded like it was even unthinkable to consider any kind of increase in the services of telecom in Nigeria. And now this. Any background, any update that people, your subscribers, may need to know about?
Thank you. We are confronted with different economic realities from what we were facing the last time we were on television. And the fact remains today that if you look at the economic indices, the current pricing regime is not sustainable. And what we have done is to approach our regulator to present a case to them to see this is where we are as an industry. And we did make some recommendation on what should be done in order to forestall the price review. But certainly considering the current global energy crisis, considering the challenges that we face in our operating environment, if we are not getting any regulatory intervention, it will be a bit difficult to sustain the industry with the current pricing regime that we have.
But I hope this consideration of yours also factors in the fact that your subscribers also operate in the same market, also confronted with the same issues that you're confronted with. So if they have low buying power, it's going to come right back at you.
Absolutely so. And for that reason, we have sought for regulatory intervention instead of a direct price increase. And what we have done is to present a case to our regulator to say this is where we are. We made some recommendations. We have only said failing which we'll have no choice than to consider approaching them again for reviewing prices. I must also say that we're a highly regulated industry. We're unable to change the tariffs without recourse to the regulator. We're not able to change any prices without asking for regulatory approval. And so the process of doing so, we need to start by letting the regulator know what are the problems that we face, present them with statistics and data to see where the economy is and where the industry is. And in order to have a sustainable industry, we're saying again that what we charge now may not be sustainable. The other thing is also government itself is introducing some new taxes on operators. I don't know if you are aware that effective from 1st of June, there will not be 5% excise tax on telecom services. This will have to be borne by someone. So if we are saying on one side we shouldn't review prices, and on another side government compromises our ability to sustain the current pricing regime, it's a narrow one actually, and that's something that government itself has a duty to look into.
Well, that sounds to me like anticipatory costing, but we'll come to that. But, you know, one of the information that the NCC has put out is that there will be no price increase without some study done to the effect. If that study has been done, I'm wondering why maybe your subscribers also couldn't come on your side and say, oh, okay, they're right. Maybe, is this something that can be made public? If it has been sent to the NCC.
We presented data to the regulator, and numbers don't lie. The figures are there, the numbers are there. Other than the general information that we all have about the trend of the global economy, we have industry statistics. Even the National Bureau of Statistics itself has released information about the trend of inflation in the country since the beginning of the year till now. So the data will be there to speak for itself. We just expect that fairness will prevail, and all those who are responsible will have a critical look at what we face so that we can have a sustainable industry. Because we must warn that there's no industry that is immune against failure. For us to avoid any catastrophic situation in our sector, we are saying let's look at the reality of our pricing, let's look at the challenges that we face, let government itself do something in order to mitigate against having this kind of explosion.
Okay. Mr. Chief Ogumbanjo, are you aware of this statistics, this research done to validate the reason for an increase?
Unfortunately, a lot of subscribers are not aware at all. And it's rather unfortunate that, again, you can imagine Engineer Adebayo telling us, Alton, that another excise duty, 5%, is going to be charged again. Government is not even helping matters for now. So many taxes. In fact, about 20, 25 different taxes, including state governments and all that. They really should come in to ensure that telecoms is affordable to the average Nigerian. That is the last hope. That is what we depend on for our businesses, for very many things, virtual meetings and stuff like that. So I would say that it's unfortunate that we are not aware of all this study. We are not.
Well, the economy, you know, is in dire straits, having many sectors having come from, you know, the bent back of the COVID-19 pandemic. And we only just exited the aviation sector. But let's look at it a bit from a more realistic perspective, Mr. Ogumbanjo. During COVID,
yes,
the telecom sector cashed out. And here's the figure. GSM operators generated revenue increased by 12.3% from 2.02 trillion naira recorded the previous year to 2.27 trillion naira. Internet service providers generated 68.96 billion naira in revenue, up from 28.31%, while others generated 437.49 billion naira, up from generated 534, you know, compared with 437 in 2019. If we're going to be honest with ourselves, shouldn't the telecom sector be offering bailouts to other sectors? What's the justification for an increase in tariff?
Quite honestly, during COVID, you know, a lot of us took to virtual everything, from calls to virtual meetings to virtual everything, electronic this, electronic that. But beyond that now, post-COVID, well, I don't know what to say now, whether it is post-COVID, but after these serious COVID times.
Post-lockdown is okay.
Well, post-lockdown, yes. Government now came up with this SIM-NIN registration thing, which was December 2020. And that, again, has affected some revenue, particularly now that a lot of subscribers are shut out. They can't do ongoing calls from their phones. And that is affecting subscribers' business. As Alton is crying out that, sorry, they have challenges and all that with government and whatever taxes, here we are as well. They have also, well, though it's a government directive, they have also now shut down some of the businesses of subscribers by not being able to make calls. I can't make calls to my business associates. So here we are. A lot of us, close to about 70 million now, maybe there are new figures, that are still not being linked. And government is also not considering extension for now. So I quite sympathize with the operators. This is some huge loss of revenue for them. But that does not now, that shouldn't translate to increasing price. No, 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 no. It shouldn't.
Are you saying that the telecoms operators, despite that huge profit made in 2020, have begun to struggle? Is it as a result of poor management of the huge turnover that you recorded in 2020?
I must say, maybe Alton is now strategically looking at, post-June, maybe second quarter or so, third quarter forecasts. For now, they shouldn't be thinking of that at all. Let us settle subscribers. Let us understand that subscribers also need to be in business. Let us appeal to government to ensure that they unbar or unban subscribers. But then revenue will come.
Subscribers also need to do, what government is asking for. It's a simple thing, isn't it?
Yes, it is. But, there are so many challenges also with NIMC website, NIMC portals to upload some of these data that is being collected nationwide.
So you think that the barring of the lines of some people has affected the prices?
Yeah. The revenue, yes, okay. The revenue lost to the operators.
Okay. Well, Engineer Adebayo, I mean, you've heard some of the issues raised by my colleague now, and I'm sure you're inching to respond to some of the issues that she's raised in those figures.
Yes, those numbers sound very nice and they look positive, but the reality differs from that. We are an industry with many players. For example, we have the tier 2, tier 3 operators that are not feasible in some of those dynamics that have been read out. The reason is that we can't take the performance of the few major operators as the state of health of the industry. I must also say that in the intervening period, when these reports are being collated, the report that your colleague read, we had many operators who either couldn't pay staff salaries or couldn't fulfill their obligation as maybe due because of the challenges they had in income. So we must look at the health of the industry holistically, and let's be careful not to take the performance of some of the participants as the overall performance of the entire industry. That's number one. Number two is that if you look at those numbers, what is the cost of providing the service? There's a cost element. You've looked at the outcome, you look at the results. What is the baseline cost of delivering on those services? Those also cost significantly high. And our position is that the state of health of the industry provides no guarantee about the industry's sustainability. And that's why we are saying, let's work with numbers, let's work with data, let's work with statistics. Let's work with the reality of our operating environment. Whether we like it or not, the behavior of government in itself is not helping things for anyone. Other than the issue of sliding in the value of the currency, we have the issue of a high cost of energy supply. We have security problems across the country. We have public actors closing telecom sites for reasons of collecting revenues. Chief Ogumajo did mention 28 taxes and levies. I must correct that. We stand today at about 36 of those, 36 various taxes and levies against operators. An additional 5% excise tax is now being considered effective from 1st of June and so on. All of these affect the bottom line of the sector. And that's why we went to the regulator to say, this is the problem that we have. This is where we are as an industry. And we made some prayers to say, prayers 1 to 9, these are the things that we think the regulators should do to mitigate against the current challenges that we have in order to prevent an increase in subscriber cost. So, in essence, the first thing first is for regulators to look at the challenges that we have put before them. Government to intervene in areas that they can intervene, and I must say not by way of bailout, it's also just a regulatory instrument, to utilize the necessary regulatory instrument to get what we need to get, to make things better for all, and then life can be better for everyone. But I must warn that the state of health of the industry as it stands today raises some concern. And let's continue to remind ourselves that there is no sector that is immune against failure. If government action doesn't support the industry, it's only a matter of time.
Now, in government confirmation of your memo requesting for an increase, it mentioned proposed increase or request for increase for voice call and short messaging service. Confirm if it also covers data services. And right after doing that, I also want you to speak to the impact on subscribers, particularly those at the lowest rung of the social ladder who want to make that quick call, and they rely on this current regime that is, within their purchasing power. Surely that is going to affect them hugely.
Yeah. First is that the numbers provided to government suggest that with the current level of rates that we have in terms of operating costs, sustainability of the industry will remain a challenge. That's number one. Number two, we are concerned about the effect on subscribers. And for that reason, we have not gone to say tomorrow we are going to increase prices. We have only said this is the state of affairs of the industry. What can you do? This and this and this are what we propose as an industry for the government to look into. Now, we have mobile operators, and then we have the infrastructure providers who are faced mainly with this problem of diesel supply, logistics across the country and all that. If that sector, that part of the industry doesn't survive, it will affect the performance of the major mobile operators. And so we're looking at the industry holistically, not just looking at one side, whether voice only, data only, and so on. But we're looking at the entire sector, those who provide support services, or those who do back-end services, for instance, on the front end. And all of these are things that we present to our regulator to look at, with a view to see what our regulatory mechanism can be implemented to allow for some relief. This is what we're asking for. We are not unmindful about the impact of this on subscribers. And to be honest, on the other side, I'm also affected because I'm a subscriber. But the fact remains that if it's not sustainable, it's not sustainable.
When you say you're a subscriber, someone is wondering, really? But a number of other issues.
There must be some privileges for your class of subscriber.
We'll come to those other issues when we return from this break. Please stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Well, Chief, you've listened to Engineer Adebayo, and first of all, are you persuaded that the issues are as pressing as it says they are, and consequently, this cost review is inevitable?
The issues have been there all along, I must say. For instance, about 2-3 years back, they wanted to introduce another tax, which, of course, I don't know whether, it was jettisoned or it was withdrawn eventually. If government wants to make any revenue, the first thing they want to look at is, after oil, the next thing is telecoms. It's unfortunate. Government begins to look at telecoms not as a social service to people, but as something that has, that must be taxed almost to extinction. This, I'm taken aback by Engineer Adebayo telling us now that there's another tax coming on equipment, because what does excise tax mean? It means that equipments that are being brought in. Already there must have been some taxes on their equipments. Why this extra 5% again? Government should come to the aid of Nigerians by not squeezing or suffocating the telecom sector. For God's sake. That is the only succor that, you know, the citizenry are enjoying for now. When they now want to introduce other forms of taxes, unfortunately, challenges that Engineer Debe has mentioned includes cost of diesel, operating costs, and all that. Well, that is expected because you've made profit over the years. You can still at least cushion up some of these costs. But when government is now trying to introduce other costs, I think we should jointly now tell government they shouldn't suffocate the telecoms industry.
Do you think that the Alton members have fully exhausted all options that could forestall this?
They've not done everything they should have done. First, I know that there is a price cap of 50 naira per minute. I mean, since some years back now, 50 naira per minute. You can't go more than that. And I don't know why they now want an increase of the cap, you know. I think they want it to be 50-something naira per minute now. I mean, why do they want that?
50 naira per minute?
Yes, that is the cap as introduced by NCC.
But to clarify that we're still on the per second billing regime.
Well, they can play around, but they can play around below. They can't go above.
Okay.
So I don't know why they want an increase on the cap now.
So that's one. So is that the only other option that you think has not been fully explored?
These other costs, they should also continue to dialogue with government about multiple taxes. They started that about a few years back. I don't know why they are not continuing on that. Beyond that now is this loss of revenue, which is pinching them amidst all this Ukraine crisis and all that he has mentioned. So they are losing revenue, we are losing business. Let us all concertedly agree that government should please extend the SIN registration stuff so that they can make more revenue and at least revenue loss will be minimal.
My question is for you, Mr. Adebayo. I'm sorry, I apologize ahead of time, but I wonder if telecom operators hold a mirror up to their services. You know, only a few months back, the CEO of one of the operators was apologizing for total network shutdown. Let's look at that. Let's also look at drop calls. Let's also look at SMSs not delivered. You know, let's also look at data services where subscribers don't get value for their money. In the light of that, will this increase, this request for increase, address all of these valid concerns?
Well, thank you, but let me just make a few clarifications on what my colleague, Chief Kubanjo, had said about the floor price. The floor price is some minimum, maximum from which you cannot go. And it stands at 6 naira 40 kobo, not 50 naira, just for clarification. On the tax, the excise tax, we're reading it as a consumption tax, actually, because the communication says it will be on services, voice and data services provided by the operators, and this will be paid through the Nigerian Communications Commission. So we are reading it as actually as some form of consumption tax. And again, by extension, that will also translate to the subscribers. Now, we can talk about why there shouldn't be an increase from now till the end of the day today, but the fundamentals are there. January this year, liter of diesel was sold at 225 naira. All projections were based on that, plus a few percentage. Today, it's at almost 700 naira, if it's available. And you know, our industry is one of the highest consumers of diesel across the country, because a number of cell sites are powered by diesel. Because of the high cost of diesel on one side, the cases of vandalization of sites and stealing of diesel has become something of concern because almost every day, sites in places are being attacked and they are stealing diesel from those sites. They are also stealing battery for inverters. And unfortunately, some of the inverters that are sold to people's homes, some of those batteries from some sources that may come from stolen batteries from said sites. All this affects the operating environment and, of course, our cost of doing business. These are information that we continue to inform government about. And we say, given the problems that we face, we also made recommendations on what can be done. And I must say that the issue of price increase, it was not a front burner in our recommendation to the regulator. We had only said we require some regulatory instruments to be activated in order to give some relief, to mitigate against the high cost of business. So we consider the impact on consumers, and in going to our regulator to explain to them the state of affairs of the industry, a price review in terms of end user price was not the first item on the line. We had only said, failing which, we risk that this will translate to increase in consumer prices. Now, on the quality of services, I cannot assure you why we continue to do the best to provide best-in-class services across the country. I cannot assure you that due to environmental factors, which in many cases are beyond the operators, I cannot assure you that you will not have cases of services here and there. It depends on what kind of impact you have. If, for example, site is vandalized and the generator powers down due to lack of diesel, you will have an experience. If you have vandalization of fiber optic cable, which happens from time to time across the country, you will have some impact on quality of services, and so on and so forth. If you have a landlord who has seized telecom sites claiming the operators cannot access the site because he wants to increase his ground rent on it, and it impacts on quality of services, you can't avoid that from happening. Increase in price will not solve those problems. And that goes to speak to why we are calling on government to please declare telecommunications as critical national infrastructure and ring-fence it from all these external interferences. That will enable us to have seamless services across the country, because once it is declared as critical national infrastructure, it becomes as important as all gas pipeline across the country. Anyone doing anything against those services will be liable to prosecution by the public. So what we face today is where we experience these problems, we have to go ourselves to solve the problem. Many times the people are not even receptive to dialogue. All they want is money. You may have read about 2-3 weeks ago some problem we have with the particular state, where government of that state decided to seize telecom sites and arrest workers of telecom companies because of failure to pay taxes that they are asking for, which are not in the statute of the state. So this kind of behavior of public actors, no doubt, will affect seamless services across the country. And so we are saying to government has a lot to do. You can't task us to provide good quality service and compromise our ability to do so. You cannot say don't review prices and compromise our ability, not our ability to deliver services without having to increase prices. So we are more concerned about the sustainability of the industry. We are not looking at the immediate gains. We are only saying that the sector today has become most critical, that any negative impact on the telecom sector will affect the entire economy. It's the most available, it's the most affordable services across all nooks and crannies of this country. And we have a duty as a people, and our government do have a duty to protect these services, to enable us to deliver what we have to do. And in doing so, they must look at the concerns that we're experiencing. They can throw all this out of the window, but the reality will not go away. The problems will not go away if we don't do something. That's why we're calling on government. We must do something, and the time is now.
And you're proposing 40%, just to give subscribers an idea of where they're headed in case the regulator approves this request for tariff increase. 40% on voice, on SMS and data. So where are we moving to? What will subscribers likely be paid?
We are not proposing 40%. We are saying if something is not done, this is the possible implication. That's what we are saying. So we're not proposing 40%. Maybe regulator will come and say otherwise. Maybe regulator will come and say, for you to actually be realistic with the statistics that we have seen, maybe it's less than 40. Maybe it's going to be more than 40. We are only saying that if you don't look at the details of information provided, this is the risk that we stand. That's what we have said. And I wish tomorrow, like government will say, okay, we will introduce some things for the operators, waive this tax, waive this levy, waive these charges, ring-fence networks, ring-fence systems of operators. By this, we continue to have the same rate that we charge. But if something is not done, we stand this big risk. And we all have collective responsibility to ensure that something is done, and is done now.
Well, just to be clear, Engineer Adebayo, can you give us a figure to telecom operators in the country? Because it would seem like the issues of QoS, as my colleague mentioned, are not universal to all operators. It's like if you are on certain networks, you have good, QoS. If you are on certain other networks, you are not getting the best of times. And maybe in certain parts of the country, certain, operators are not able to service their clients or their subscribers optimally. Can you give us a number to the operators that are members of Alton?
Well, in Alton, we are 16. We are 16 members. But there are over 500 licensees of the Nigerian Communications Commission who provide different grades of services. Ours are the Association of Licensed Telecom Operators, which are the main players, the big players. Now, but there are over 500 of others who are licensed to provide different grades of services. And I must say, we operate all networks in one network, because at the end of the day, you could have various players doing what they do. But it's just one national network that we have. And the impact on one major player will affect the ability of the other player to deliver services. I'm not sure there is one single operator today that has the headroom to cope with the failure of another operator. I hope it doesn't happen. In essence, I'm saying that the network is so fragile that if you have one operator going down, it will affect ability of the other operator to provide good quality services across the country, because there is no such significant headroom to be able to accommodate subscribers that will overflow from a failing network to another network. And that's why we take caution in saying that we must protect the industry and not just a particular player. We're talking about the major network operator. We're talking about the infrastructure provider.
Well, in that regard, well, you've talked about it a little bit, but how will that protection come? And you've referenced also, compared the telecom sector to oil and gas. Oil and gas is denominated in dollars, for instance. Telecoms industry is not. So in that comparison, you want to help us understand what are the implications of government classifying telecoms as a critical infrastructure? What are the implications on Nigerians?
Yeah, please don't get it wrong. While our services are offered in local currency, a number of our inputs, other than consumption such as diesel and the rest of them, equipment are not made here. Equipment are imported. Number of things that we use in supporting national network are imported. And so also the demand for forex, as it is in the industry, is significantly high because of systems that are not made here. If we talk about protection of infrastructure, we are saying that classified telecom services as critical security and economic infrastructure. That's what we're saying. We're not saying because of the earnings therefrom. We're only saying that because of the critical nature of this infrastructure, accord it to the same level of protection as you will accord the oil gas line, which is a major driver of the economy. Because while oil brings revenue for government, telecom provides social and economic services for government and for people. So we think that for you to have seamless communication service, to be able to drive and power the economy, you must have that sector as protected, as critical as the economic infrastructure. And that's what we are saying. So we're not talking about the economic ethics. No, we're only saying it about the critical nature of the industry to the entire economy and the security of the country. Because imagine national blackout today, what will happen? Think about how many sectors will be affected if telecom services are affected across the country today, from aviation to commerce to civil to banking to government to travels to security to safety and all of that. So we think that these services is as critical as it is to our economy as the one that supplies the economic lifeline, which is the oil and gas. That's what we believe.
Yeah. In response to your concern about the fragility of infrastructure in the sector, give us a sense of how exposed these infrastructure are, and be specific about how you want government to intervene in protecting these infrastructure.
Now, you can say across the country, while we thank government for rebuilding our road infrastructure, you can see a number of road works going on site. Many times across the country, many times when those road works have been done, the fiber cable across the road have been excavated by government contractors. You can see also if you look critically at ongoing construction site, you will see some cables hanging on banana trees and on plantain trees by the roadside. Those are telecom infrastructure. If we have critical protection, that will not happen. Sometimes government is doing something, we don't even know what they are doing. That's one. Number two, if a state government decides to close the entire telecom site in the state, it's doing it because there are no security implications on him. Because if this be a critical national infrastructure, going to shut down that infrastructure will be shutting down the economy, actually. And then you also have cases of individual homeowners just deciding to put padlock on the site to say, you know what, you paid the rent of X last year. Now the rate has increased, though you are in a life contract, but I want more money. He just lock up the site, throw the key away, and say, pay more money, or I don't open the site. If we have this kind of protection where our infrastructure is regarded as critical national infrastructure, those kind of behavior will not happen. And that's what we are talking about. So if we say protect, we're saying ring-fence us against all kinds of external interference that often impact on on having access to that infrastructure that we so require to support the economy.
Well, Chief, you've listened to him, say those things, and I'm wondering, first of all, how do you respond to some of those issues? And before price review can be achieved, we understand that the NCC has to speak to it, compare prices and all of that.
It's a regulator.
Are you listening to him? What are your thoughts?
Quite honestly, I'm surprised that over the years we've been talking about this critical national infrastructure stuff of the telecom sector for as much as 15, 18 years now, making telecoms infrastructure a critical national asset, just like gas pipelines and all that. It's unfortunate that government is turning deaf ears all the time. I mean, over 15 years we've been on this same thing. And is just like power to every home is telecoms now to everybody. Now, it's unfortunate that telecoms affect security. If not, maybe for the subscriber and the operators, we should just say, just like the flight operators have done, from so, we are not going to do anything. That's extreme, but perhaps that will make government understand that they have to come to the aid of the telecom sector to protect it at least. Telecoms has been so unprotected and so open. About a few years back, you have some of these people maintaining their base stations being killed, and if it was, made a critical national infrastructure, all this wouldn't happen. Okay. Perhaps they shouldn't put the telecom sector to the wall by just saying, for instance, in another 1 month, we may have to shut down the entire nation. Then government will now understand why.
I don't think anyone will want that. But let me quickly ask.
So government should come in.
Yeah. Let me ask engineer on this one thing. You talked about 36 taxes that telecom operators have to pay. Which of these taxes do you think, if reduced or removed, could help retain the costs as it is?
There are taxes and levies defined in the statute. We have no objections to those ones. Basically, the company income tax, the payee tax, and all of those that are clearly defined in the statute. The nuisance taxes are actually the most problematic. If a government says they will charge effluent discharge tax on operators, what is effluent discharge? We're not an oil service company. What is environmental sanitation tax on telecom infrastructure? And those nuisance levies and taxes are actually the ones in an attempt to enforce players to pay. That's why they go on being so aggressive on players. So we are not an extractive industry where you say, because you are extracting resources, we must take X and Y from you. No, we are not. We're providing social services, socio-economic services. So we send that the nuisance taxes, quote and unquote, which are taxes that have no relationship to the general taxes defined in the statute, they are the problematic ones, actually. And that's why, if we say critical national infrastructure, those kind of taxes and levies will not be applied against service providers, because it's in an attempt for operators of government in some state and local government to enforce collection of those taxes and revenues that we have this. You have one particular state saying that they will collect office tax, business premises tax, on sales side that are in the green field, that are in the forest land. So you ask, how does that become an office?
Okay.
And an attempt to enforce this kind of tax is why they become so aggressive on operators, and they just do anything to disrupt services.
Well, we can just believe and trust that these issues, having been heard and discussed this morning, the authorities know what to do. Engineer Gbenga Adebayo, Chairman, Association of Licensed Telecom Operators of Nigeria, as well as Chief Adeolu Ugumbanjo, National President, National Association of Telecom Subscribers. NACOMS. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming on Sunrise Daily.
So, your messages, contributions to the program coming next. Chine Gono is talking about this conversation. Once it comes to revenue generation, government and operators are best of friends, leaving the end users to their fate. 5% excise tax will go through. Same for 40% increase. But what happens to quality control, dropped calls, undelivered texts, and so on? Well, I believe that there has been some answers, but I don't know.
I was just going to go there. How can subscribers be protected? But we're out of time. Let's take reactions from Oshinowo Kinsley. He says, every cost in Nigeria keeps going up while income is diminishing. Most of these companies, in bracket telecom, aviation, manufacturing, are seriously considering relocating to other countries where cost of doing business is less. Yet the government shows little or no concern.
Akal Modu says, consumer protection is what Nigerians need now. Service providers of all sorts are extorting Nigerians. Each service provider comes up with new price regimes and force such prices down our throats. Pay TV, GSM and electricity providers increase prices indiscriminately.
And from Professor Imonoka Anegbe in Nakena, he says, aviation and telecom businesses continue to face economic challenges, from the steep depreciation of the currency to inflationary pressures, and more so, supply chain crisis resulting from the Russia-Ukraine war, which has impacted in world businesses and its prices.
Festus Akimboyewa on cost of aviation and matters arising says, do our airline operators expect FG to borrow to subsidize their operations? There's a sharp rise in price of fuel that is threatening the airline industry worldwide. In fact, big airlines like Delta are recording losses. Our airlines should increase their fares. Simple. Uh-oh.
And Pastor Law Alpha Cross says, government should secure and deploy interventionist options to ensure the availability of aviation fuel in order not to frustrate flight operations, more so now that road travels are risky.
Olagunjo Oladele says the crucial aspect of the aviation sector is knowing the impact it has on the economy and national security. According to Captain Musa Nuhu, we lost 70% of our income during the early COVID-19 era. We should have set a precedent for proactive measures in the sector.
And very quickly, Emelenjo says, airlines can agree on a queue system where ready aircrafts can carry passengers irrespective of where the passenger bought his ticket. They can then do their inter-airline settlements. That way, the operating costs will reduce since they will be sure of full load. I don't know how that will work.
Sounds like
Captain Sanusi is not here.
Sounds like potting. Yeah. Henry on State of the Nation says a body with multi-systemic organ failure ought to have better committed caregivers who are not distracted by any other concerns but have informed review of the treatment modalities. Else, the outcome is very predictable. And that's Sunrise Daily this Monday morning. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I'm Ayo Makinde.
And I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo. Have a beautiful day ahead.